Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mr. Grant?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye, motion carried. Section 2, board liaison and committee updates. Item 2.1, legislative.
Nothing this time. They're on vacation, or they're out until after the election. There is one piece of legislation going through, I guess, about they want the teachers of all schools to have a panic button, I guess, on them. And I think that'll be voted on, I think. And whether it'll pass or not, I don't know. We have to find out how it works.
Like a life alert?
Yeah, like a lifeline. It's a panic button, like, if you're,
Who would it even call?
I don't know, that's what I would like to know, because if it goes directly to if it goes into the school, well, what do they need?
I think it was the last, unfortunately, the last school shooting in Georgia, they did have those, and it helps the police locate exactly where it is.
Oh, where the activity is.
Cuts down on like a time getting there and everything, and they're very good systems, but they're very, very expensive, so.
But does it go direct to the police and fire?
Probably be all of the above.
All the above?
Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't sure, because it didn't say anything about that in the paper, but anyway, that's coming. That's all I have.
Is it like
Hundreds of thousands.
GPS based?
I don't know exactly. We actually, before this bill was introduced at our last county superintendent's meeting, we're having a couple companies come to just talk to us about it and get some pricing and look at some different options, so I'm sure it won't be funded.
Yeah. Of course not. All right. Thank you, Mr. Leeds. All right, item 2.2, Butler Tech. I do not see Mr. Guido.
I actually think he's out of town.
He's just skipping out on
I
us.
think he's out of town. I haven't seen him in weeks, so.
That's all right. He'll catch us up. Item 2.3, finance.
For this month.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Grant. And item 2.4, student achievement.
So, hi, for student achievement, I'd like to report that the primary did an Otis Spunkmeyer cookie dough fundraiser, over $40,000 in product. Of course, not all of it was cookie dough, because that's a lot of cookie dough, but there's other products, but that's pretty amazing to sell that much. So congratulations to the primary students for their successful fundraiser. For the junior high, the National Junior Honor Society serves to, wait, I'm going to start over on this one. The National Junior Honor Society serves to honor students who have demonstrated excellence in the areas of scholarship, leadership, service, character, and citizenship. On Thursday, September 12th, the following students were inducted into the National Junior Honor Society: Sumatucci Anya, Shaylin Krause, Will Barger, Natalie Lane, Kiefer Brodnuck, Abby McMullen, Kennedy Bryant, Jonah Miller, Amelia Buchanan, Emily Morris, McKenna Combs, Jackson Ehrenberg, Campbell Daniel Days, Landon Owens, Catherine Dirksen, Natalie Piera, Cameron Durr, Lily Queen, Mallory Doan, Ava Reeves, Sophia Donward, Henry Ryan, Braden Erb, Elena Scholl, Olivia Fields, Evangeline Scott, Emery Hacker, Evelyn Selman, Adam Hance, Hannah Tribby, Anthony Joseph, Ariana Turco, Barrett Kennemer, Lauren Whitty, and Maddie Kinsley. So congratulations to all of those students. And also for the junior high, every month Mr. Stanger sends out a nomination form during Hive Time for the students to recognize their favorite staff members and to nominate them for Hornet of the Month Award. The winner is based on the votes and nominations and the best written nominations. The students are encouraged to submit well-written nominations, and kudos to the students for nominating their favorite staff member. The September 2024 Hornet Award of the Month was given to Miss Baker. So what some of the students wrote, which I think is pretty cool, the students nominate their teachers. Some said, "I'm voting for Miss Baker because she is an amazing teacher. Miss Baker teaches her class very well. She always has a positive energy every day in class, and she is my favorite teacher." Another student said, "She has helped everyone who has needed help in her class. She's a very nice and cool science teacher." Please nominate her because of all the work she has done to help us, even though the year just started. I've had a lot of fun in her class these past few weeks. So congratulations for those students who nominated Ms. Baker and to Ms. Baker herself. And for the high school, as I mentioned at the last board meeting, the senior class organized a t-shirt sales for Remembering Madison Smallwood and to raise funds for the pediatric cancer. They raised over $13,000. So that was a great job for them and amazing for the Monroe community to step up and support that. So that's all that there is for student achievement.
That's great. Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Moving on to Section 3, Communications, Item 3.1, MEA. Nothing this evening. All right. 3.2, Recognition.
I don't think we have a recognition.
None. All right. 3.3, Comments from the Public. Seeing none, we will continue on to Item 3.4. Ms.
It's a nice magazine laying here. So I wanted to, could you go ahead and open up that PowerPoint there? Thank you. Thanks. I just wanted to present to you for your, recommend to you our ELA adoption for the 24-25 school year. If you go to the next slide, please. The expectations. Is it moving? So this year's adoption looks a little different because House Bill 33 brought some changes to the way that districts adopt curriculum, especially right now for K-5 ELA. They have expectations for us, which the second and third are pretty normal, but the first one is the one that's the largest change. The department issued or established a list of instructional core materials that we can use or that we can choose from. Normally that has not been there. They would have a list of like vendors that you could go to, but this is an actual approved, and we have to report what we're using from here on out. So that is one of the biggest changes to the adoption process for just K-5 ELA right now. We hear that math is coming, K-5, but we're still waiting on word about that. So the other thing that they did was, on the list, the materials that are, I don't know if it'll move. Thanks. Everything that's on the list has to be aligned to the science of reading. You've heard us talk, Amy, on the last agenda, I think Mrs. Moore had you approve our payment for a lot of our teachers who've already completed their professional development in the science of reading. That is also another requirement that came along with that House bill. So every core curriculum on the list is supposed to meet all four of those indicators. It's a big list. It is on ODE's or on the department's website. You can look at that. So we used all this information, if you can move to the next one, please, sorry, to start our adoption process. Once the list was released, which was late March, that was pretty late, but it was late March, for us to look at, we went ahead, looked at the list, and when I say we, our ELA review committee, we have had about 26 teachers on that committee. That was a pretty big committee for us. But we reviewed the different curriculums that they were offering. We were able to go to a vendor fair, which was really nice. They had about 24 different vendors there that we could go to their presentations, so we got to see some overviews of the programs. We reviewed those. We had the vendors come. We had samples, we had the vendors then come to Monroe, the ones that we chose, and they did presentations for us. We were able to ask questions. That was a nice day for us to really be able to ask those questions before we started digging in. Then we started digging in, because of course the salespeople are going to give you, they're the best programs in the world, all of them are. So then we were able to dig in and use our credentials, or what we think Monroe needs, what our students need, and what our teachers need, to decide what we wanted to, how many we wanted to narrow it down to. We narrowed it down to 4, and then we narrowed it down to 2. From that 2, we took another 2 days, well, day and a half, and we just listed pros and cons of the 2 that we were looking at, trying to decide whether we wanted to pilot, whether we wanted to, you know, how do we want to proceed with this? Well, it came down to and became pretty obvious that the teachers decided they just wanted, they knew which one they wanted. So we went ahead, we all agreed unanimously, the group agreed, this is the one we wanted. I received the quotes and the proposed PD plan from this company, and now I'm here to present to you what the teachers chose. So if you go to the next slide, we went with SRA Open Court Reading, copyright 2023, it's a new one, and the publisher is McGraw-Hill. So I was honestly, I was a little surprised that that's the one that they went with, but pleasantly surprised. I mean, I think it is looks like a really strong program. I linked in your presentation, the first one is an alignment to the science of reading. That is actually from the publisher that you can look at that tells how it's aligned and the research that's been done. But the other thing that really struck us about this one was that it has been around for over 60 years. So something new, it's not a fad. It's been around for for many years. They have made a few changes to it, but the basic foundation of the program has remained the same. So we were pretty impressed with that because we've watched some of these programs. As soon as the science of reading came out, everybody changed their program and put in the buzzwords. So we liked that we had some efficacy in that one. The teachers liked that it was a comprehensive program K through 5, and that the daily intervention lessons are linked to the core lessons. So you're not doing something separate, you're doing something that's related to what the teachers just taught in your intervention groups. And we thought that that would be very beneficial to our student subgroups, like our English learners and our special education groups, and our title groups as well. Another thing that the teachers liked about this program was the durability of the instructional materials. I know that sounds a little funny, but we have discovered that with the paperback books that come with a lot of the series, they fall apart. And we have had to have them replaced. Thank goodness the publishers most of the time will replace for free. But as you get up in grades, this series has a hardback anthology. So it's nice, it should last, especially at the elementary level, it should last for 6 years, 5 years, whichever we decide to go for the program. And then the teacher materials were very organized and easy to use. That was another thing that they were looking for, because so many times programs, teachers' manuals, it's go here, go there. They felt like this would be easy for our teachers to follow. So that was those were some of the key highlights. They had a list of probably about 20 things. One other thing for the science of reading, it has a really strong K-2 foundational skills program, which that's something that our kids really need. And so we liked the fact that it had that. And then the 4, 5, and 6 teachers loved the fact that it had a strong writing program. So that was, those are some of the things that stood out to them when we were looking through it. Make sure I'm not forgetting anything. So if you go to the next one, yep. So this is our quote is, if you guys want to click on it, you're more than welcome to. This is a 6-year subscription. So it's one that goes over the 6 years. It includes a student bundle, which is all the print materials plus digital licenses. It has the foundational skills kits for grades K to 3, the foundational world analysis skills kits for 4, 5, teacher editions, digital platform access, the print resource packages, and then also the professional development is in this quote as well. That will come from 590 though, from our professional development grant that we have. The other thing that's new is, and this was, I guess, probably a one-time deal, districts received money from the state to offset the cost of the curriculums, because many districts probably were in like a first year of a new adoption. And if the new adoption was not on the list, they had to start all over. So we were lucky, we were at the tail end of our adoption, thank goodness. But we did receive $139,000 for core materials and $20,000 for intervention materials. And that's the handout I gave you. It kind of describes how they allocated this money, and then on the back of that, on the back of this sheet is our allocation, how we got it. And we are able to use that money, even though it says $20,000 for intervention materials, we can combine all that and spend it on the core materials. It doesn't have to go just to intervention. We are still reassessing our intervention needs, though. They did publish the intervention list a month ago, I think, and we are attending a vendor fair on this coming Friday just to look to see what new interventions are out there. Our interventions that we use currently are on the list, so we hopefully will be okay and won't need to purchase anything for that piece. The Open Court Professional Development and Implementation Plan, we have 3 days in person for training. Then we're going to have many training sessions with administrators, instructional coaches, intervention English learner teachers, gifted instructional specialists, and title reading teachers. This is so they can learn how to use the core curriculum materials in their small groups, or if they're doing a pull, so that we're, like I said earlier, we're connecting things for the kids and not doing separate things, separate activities or separate programs. And the ELA committee is recommending that we transition to full implementation of Open Court in April of 2025. We have to have something in place by May 1st of 2025. So this is considered a transition year. So, and unfortunately, the last slide was left off, so I will I don't know why, but I'll put it back in there and attach it. What it is it just says that I'll have the curriculum 30 days at the board office if anyone wants to preview it, or you can go online to look at it as well. So, and then it'll be on the next board agenda for approval. So do you have any questions? And that was a lot.
I have a few, just a couple.
Yep.
I just want to make sure I'm clear. The state is mandating
Yes.
the vendors that the school districts can choose from here on out.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. K5 right now.
Just think about that.
Yep.
Right.
I just wanted to make sure I understood that correctly.
Yes.
And are they giving you, Monroe and any other districts, the same options that we had before, or is it completely different options?
Some of them are the same, some of them are not, but I will tell you it's up to the publisher whether they submitted their program for approval. For example, ours, the one we use now. Ed Reports is one of the reports, the systems that they use to guide you whether or not they're good curriculums or not. So that we use ReadyGen right now. That is all green, very acceptable, but it is not on the approved list because the publishers decided not to submit it. They are no longer going to keep it. They're going to sunset it in a couple of years.
So I guess I'm confused. What made them decide that they needed a mandate to the schools?
It was in the House bill. It was Governor DeWine. It's all the Ohio Read
Yep.
initiatives.
I just,
And a lot of states do have core list, and a lot of states only have 4 or 5 that you can choose from. We have a pretty long list.
Okay.
So, yeah.
My last question is in regards to the proposal itself. I saw that there's a quote in here, and then it gives you free materials, and then there's a grand total. That grand total is before the 139?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought, just wanted to clarify.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
And the other thing, that is for 6 years. We could go 5 years. I still am going back and forth, but I did put the maximum one for you guys, so.
So we're really looking at about, if we do 5 years, you're looking at about 40, is it paid per year?
No, we pay it all up front.
Upfront, so you're looking at about 40,000 a year if we do
Yes.
5 years or?
Yeah,
Okay.
except I did share with Amy, and we're going to look at this tomorrow. They are offering a deal where we split it over 2 years.
Oh.
That's just, I don't know, it's just something the company is offering,
Okay.
so.
Is there a cost savings to do that over 2 years? Because that's a discussion.
Yeah, we just, yeah, because I just
Sometimes they
mentioned it.
offer, if you pay it all up front, it's cheaper.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
who knows?
Thank you for the answers.
And then we'll take 10,000 off of that too for PD, because that won't come out of
Okay.
textbook account.
So would this be starting in the school year 25, 26?
So we would start it at the end of this
Of
school
the
year.
end of this-
Mhm. Has
for
to
next
be
school year.
adopted by May 1st. Something
1st.
has to be
Okay.
adopted by May 1st. That's the deadline from the
So
state.
it's like a transition year.
Yeah.
Okay.
So between May 1st and the end of the year, you're going to be able to tell how this program's doing?
No.
No.
Well, Mikey got it, yeah, he did it, didn't he, huh?
I'm sure you thought of this as well, that like for, not K through 5, but like 6 through 12, like what we use there for them, those students now, in the future, whenever we need to renew that, to kind of keep that in mind for, because if they're mandating this now, what's going to happen? They'll eventually,
So that's what, I really expected
Mandate.
612 to come next. I really
Yeah.
didn't think math would come next. I thought language arts would be finished out, but they're saying that
It's going to be math, Kate.
it's going to be math and they're not going to, yeah.
okay.
I will tell you right now what we use 7 to 12 Study Sync is actually, that's like the next move from open court, you go to Study Sync. So that is a nice transition. Now, I don't know how much longer, the teachers may say when that's up that they're done with that, but that is a nice transition. 6th grade will continue to just use Ready Gen
Okay, okay,
until it runs out. And then we'll have to figure out what to do with them.
yeah, okay.
This is part of the new regime in the state school board, right? Workforce or whatever it
The
is.
department.
Yep. It's Governor DeWine, when he started pushing science or reading, that was kind of the beginning of all of it.
Yeah.
It's kind of his baby.
He knows best, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, don't let the schools decide.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jody.
Thank you.
All right. Item 3.5, superintendent update.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. I just want to start off, of course, last weekend was the homecoming week, and a lot of great things for our staff and students with the week. During the week, pep rally, parade, football game on Friday, and there was a great turnout for that. And followed by the dance Saturday, which was, as Mr. Prohaska would say, I did all weekend, so that was a good thing. So that meant it was uneventful, and kids had a great time. So I did want to mention again, Debbie mentioned it in her report on student achievement, that the fundraiser for Madison Smallwood, again, that was a completely driven by the students that came up with the idea. And again, Madison Smallwood passed away from pediatric cancer a number of years ago, and this would have been her senior year. So the seniors came up with this idea. The fundraiser ended up raising, is Tom back there still? Just over $12,000 to be donated to, I think they were, most of it was going to Children's Hospital. So that's amazing that our community came together and did that. And it was just a neat event for everybody, so. Next thing I want to talk about just briefly today, we will get into it more next board meeting, but as you saw, the report cards came out, state report cards. Monroe was 4.5 stars out of 5, which is, it exceeds state standards. The performance index has gone up each year over the last 3 years. We are above what it was before COVID when it dropped, so we're above where that was. So I'm very proud of the staff, students. They're working hard, but we're never satisfied, and we're currently, we're digging into the data, and we're going to look at what we're doing and how do we continue to grow and get better. So although I'm very proud of it, we're going to continue to work, and our goal is to get over that half-star hump to get to that 5 stars. So we're so close. And again, we'll go into more detail next. We'll have a presentation on that at our next board meeting. So, and then now I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Catanzaro. He is. We've been working on. He especially, and Mr. Thomas have been working on our facility 5-year. You have a name for it. the plan of facilities, and he's going to go over all that for us right now.
Just a tiny bit of a glance at some projects we did this summer, and then I'll talk to you about what the plan is. We're not going to look at the full plan. It's not at that place yet. But, and I know if Cinda is able to get that forward, but essentially what I've got for you is just a snapshot of the work that we've done. You may have seen some or all of it. If you click into the link in the superintendent's update, you'll be able to see it, even if she can't present it here. So initially at the primary school, we had done quite a bit of work this summer. The pavement in the back lot, where you think of the old high school, you set between that and the baseball diamonds back there, we resurfaced that. And I'll at least highlight one thing. A lot of what we've done has been, for years has been when things are failing, we go after them. This is an example where obviously it had needed attention for quite some time. It's really only used for Melissa's pickup and drop-off time, but in fact, we're still trying to stretch even when we say, yes, we're doing it. You'll notice there's a path down the center of it. When the school was demolished, the drainage swale and some tile was put under that, or a drain pipe. So we didn't recover that, trying to save just and stretch the little bit that we spend on this as much as possible. So you'll see, if you can click 2 slides forward, probably. So you'll see in that back lot, recoated and restriped, looks beautiful. It's a very different driving experience than it was basically a gravel lot before. And so, Cinda, when you go to the next spot, you'll see 2 sets of flooring work that we did in the cafeteria. There are some remaining asbestos tiles. We've had them coming up. We entombed those with a new kind of a plank flooring, so they're still there. Saved us quite a bit in terms of not doing the abatement now. The state will eventually co-fund that at some point, if we deal with that. So we've got a temporary solution for that to make it look nice and not have any trip hazards. On the right, for the first time in, might be my lifetime, that gym floor was torn down and refinished by Ohio Floor. Looks beautiful. If you've not been there, it really brightens the place up. So, and then on the next, Cindy, you'll see some masonry work. If you remember, last summer we had done 2 beams and lentils that were starting to fail. We had worked with architects and engineers to deal with that. There were 2 remaining locations. There were 2 classrooms left, and then the media center, what used to be the media center, which is now a music room. So you'll see they removed about 6 or 8 courses of brick. They pulled the beam out, and the lintel plate under that replaced that. The crew that did it this year was fantastic. Really good group, and so that was, for us, a pretty hefty investment in the primary school, but things that we'd need to do. The next, we'll go on to some things at main campus. Obviously, the big roof were about $1 million project. You'll see on the left just some examples. The right side, you'll see some of the gravel and the ballast that was on that. Underneath that was a membrane. Underneath that was insulation of 8 to 13 inches depth, and then the roof decking itself. So they had estimated about a quarter of the roof insulation needed to be, it was wet, needed to be replaced, so they did that as a part of this as well. So you can see once they did that, they suck out all the old rock, and then they flood a white coat. So you'll see it in part, it's done. The back half of the building, only of the elementary school office and rotunda remain to be done there, but they run a pour coat over that, and so that you can go on to the next one. And you'll see a more finished version of that if you click the next one, Cinda. And even now, the picture on the left is an example. We've been on the roof for a couple different walkthroughs. So that little, where there's a little red line, that's one of the drain outlets. And there's just a little bit that they have to reseal. And so using the manufacturer as an agent for us, they've been out inspecting it and really doing phenomenal detail work down to how they're tying off the lightning system and dealing with flashing. And so really, I feel good about the team's work and our ability to follow up and get to little details like that. That's after the second walkthrough. And they're like, no, come fix this. So you see a more complete picture on the right. Over time, it does collect dust and debris fairly quick, so it already does not look as pristine as the picture. So if you ever get up and say, why isn't it so white anymore?
And if you ever wanted to stop raining completely for months, just get a new roof, because we're assuming that it's not going to leak, but it literally has not rained in months,
Yeah,
so.
we had, we were about 80% complete, and they had some big rain, and Jeff and the guys were, we were taking on water, so. And on the next picture, Cindy, you'll see the sidewalk that we did back by the tennis courts. So that's just kind of a glance through some of the work this summer. A huge thanks to John Thomas. Without him, a lot of this wouldn't have come to its final state, just in terms of seeing it through, getting numbers and all the other things. So John was very helpful in getting us through this. As we think about the facility capital planning, I mentioned we were in a run-to-fail space when we were in fiscal emergency. And when Phil and Holly and I sat down, we went through kind of a capital plan. And Phil laughed at me when I said, hey, I need to spend this much money every year. And he's like, no, you're not doing that. Kathy came in, we started working forward, and then COVID, and now Robert and Amy, we've revisited that same thing and have gone back through updating numbers. Some of these are numbers based on vendor information. Some of these are industry standard kind of things, but we're putting that on paper to be able to take one kind of glance that we will refer to annually in the budgeting and planning process of what's coming, what's out there as a possible liability, and what may be something that we need to keep on our radar. That will include just keep the lights on, deal with the pavement, deal with the slope roof, and a lot of that will also come into play as we work with the architects and construction manager team for the construction, because much of this campus is potentially reprogrammable, eligible, where you can get co-funding. And so we're in that, again, boat where we're going to have a plan, but that plan is going to morph every year as we move forward, as we think about when does this campus become eligible for that co-funding. Because, repainting every classroom in this building will be co-fundable. If it's critical now, we may push some things forward, but we're going to try and be judicious with that, knowing we've got the potential driveway, the infill of the gym, and some other costs like that coming up. So that's what's happening. So there is a document. It's not in a final form and it's not going to be something we put on the board here necessarily, but finance group or in a work session or something we may go through. So that's kind of the work that's rolling for us.
Jesse, on the roof, what kind of 20 year, 40 year?
I think it's 20 or 25 year. It's got to be 20 year. I think it's 20 year. Because we were 20 when this was built, and we just expired,
So the other roof, or the old roof, you said it was wet underneath.
Insulation, yeah.
Would the roof fail?
Some of that happens when there are partitions, if the flashing or something comes loose, or the control joints. I mean, and this is eye-opening for me, being up and spending a fair amount of time up there and going through with our masonry crew and looking at just the amount of expansion joint caulking that there is up there. All of the detail, when you see the inset bull nose or windows, or there is, you go around the building 6 times, it's a linear path around the building. I'm sure there's that much expansion joint, and that sort of stuff is like, okay, are we doing it as an area has an issue? Are we doing it proactively? And that's kind of the evaluation that I think the facility capital plan conversation is gonna be evaluating.
As a sidebar issue, could the roofer that put the roof on do some kind of an inspection after 5 years, 10 years, or whatever, to see where we stand?
So they, I don't know in terms of the original history of that. For us, this group will do, and we could pay them extra to do more PMs and more frequent stuff. There's an annual walk where they'll come, they'll inspect, they'll clean, they'll deal with issues. And then under warranty, basically, we call them out and they deal with issues. Unfortunately, once you start getting water through and it gets wet, it's hard to fix that without removing and patching.
But there shouldn't be water coming through for 20 years.
Ideally.
Well, to Tom's point, with the original roof, really how much PM did we really do in that?
Well, so they did an annual. So even when Steve Moon was here, they'd come out and do an annual inspection. And then we call them for any warranty repairs.
Okay.
Now, unfortunately, on a flat roof, again, I'm not an expert, I'm not an architect. On a flat roof, the place where it leaks into the building is not the place where it's leaking above it. And so wherever it drips down in the trays, and so they're chasing, they think they find a problem, and then the next big rain, they find the problem, or find the next closest problem. So that's part of, I think, what the issue is and why water intrudes in that is my perspective, non-expert perspective, so.
While we're on projects, where are we on the new exit?
The new-
We had the
new drive.
the traffic.
Oh, the new drive, yeah.
The traffic study
It's
is.
supposed to be cleared by the city by the end of this month.
Yeah.
So they give us a 30-day review window, and I'm going to say it's late August.
What
when
the
that
hell's
was.
the city waiting on? They've had it for a long time.
Well, so this is the full traffic study. This is 110 pages of, we originally submitted 40 or 50 pages of
140
stuff.
pages, I think.
Yeah, it's a bunch of pages. And so this is the full traffic study, count recommendations. There was the preliminary, look at the process. It seems like.
I think the city, the county, and ODOT all have a copy right now, so. but-
The city's the only group, to their credit, the city's the only group that responded and said you
Yes.
can expect this time window. ODOT and the county did not respond.
I hate to see it work on a 5 mile.
Should be end of this month, and then we'll see.
Yep.
And you'll see later on this meeting, we have an architect selected for the gym infill. CMR closes for RFQ on Monday. Then there'll be a process to get the RFP from them.
Yeah. And what I want to piggyback on that is, we talked about this a little bit, but with this smaller project, we'll have the architect in place, and whoever ends up for the CMR, I think it's a fantastic opportunity. One, I think we're pricing, we're going to get really good, because people are going to say, there's a new high school coming, hopefully, and so the bids, I think, are going to be very competitive. But two, it gives us a small project to say, all right, they work really well with us, we're impressed, or there's no way we're moving forward, you know? So, I mean, it gives us, it's like a trial error
Yep.
on a much smaller project. So I think that is definitely a win-win for us moving
Good
forward.
idea.
And Tom, I cannot tell you how frustrating this whole drive thing has been. This is year 4 for me, and we started talking about this my first year.
I mean, the county did it too. The county held up in the city. They've kicked it back a couple times, haven't they?
They gave back some comments initially to the initial proposal. I wouldn't say that they've been, they're just slow. From what I would expect is, oh, looks all right, put the driveway in.
Yeah.
Or make a turn lane in this big. At this point, just tell us how much.
Yes.
Yeah, but we got the turn lane was added by the state, wasn't it?
Kleinger's is the one who has to look at the number.
Yes.
And Kleinger's is saying, potentially with these counts and the potential growth calculations, the turn lane may be justified.
Yeah.
An inbound north on Yankee right-hand
But the
turn.
price of the turn lane was
170.
way less than I thought.
That was Kleinger's estimate.
Yes.
And the architects and MCS, our owner's agent, said,
I
yeah.
thought it was going to be $500,000.
That'd be a great
They
number.
said their estimate's less than 200,000, so that's.
Oh, wow.
It's good.
Yeah.
Contingent
But,
on
Tom,
utility pole movement.
I just want to go on record saying this. When I was new here and we talked about this, I remember in a meeting, Jody said to me, man, they've been complaining about that drive. If you can get a second drive put in there, that'll be something great for this community. And it's now year 4. So it doesn't mean we're not going to continue with it. And I actually do think we're getting very close. Like, once we get this traffic study back, then it's in our court to move forward with it. And that's the easy part, if Amy allows me to spend the money, so. But, it's just the planning and the traffic study, that has been a painstakingly slow process, so.
I have another question about a smaller project I'd mentioned earlier. Is there an update on the signage, updating signage for the
Yeah,
campus?
so Adam, actually, we got an initial quote, and it was of enough of a sizable price that we had a second vendor quote it. So Adam has in his hands, I think as of this morning, the second quote.
Okay.
So, again, I was trying to
So
beat
it's-
people up on price
Yeah,
because
no,
us spending $10,000 on something
Yeah.
is worth
As long as
attempting that.
it's in the works, and
Yeah.
I just want to make
Yeah.
sure it's still kind of moving
Yep.
forward, so.
Absolutely.
Okay.
The other thing that's in the near future, auditorium carpet, is on, ideally for this fall. We have a tentative date of October 14th. They're waiting on if they can get the product shipped in time. If not, it may be a Christmas break timeline. We are pulling out the LED lighting, so it'll just be a transition, solid transition strip instead. So, thank you all.
Thank you, Jesse.
Thanks, Jesse.
Thank you.
A couple things to add to that, as we go through that, Jesse and myself and John and Amy will sit down and look at things and start working that into the budget, you know, the capital improvement budget. So again, it is not a reactionary thing where we know that this is, you know, 2 years down the road, this is going to be a big expense, so maybe this year we're spending a little less on some capital improvement things and moving forward. And then, obviously, you know, the wish list, I've got that updated. I'll send that to you guys on Friday of what has been kind of checked off on that. But as of between now and November 5th, obviously, it's on hold, and November 5th will kind of tell us the direction, you know, 2 very different directions depending on the result on November 5th, where we move with that. So hopefully with the, you know, if the bond issue passes in November, that will put a lot of things in this campus on hold until we have everything figured out on the next phase, you know. Even things like playgrounds and that sort of thing, because as we repurpose this building and we decide, you know, where is each grade level going to be, that affects everything, so.
No, okay.
All right, and then my final thing, just moving on, you know, obviously, 2 weeks ago, when we had the issue with the safety concern, I just want to thank everybody for their patience and understanding. Again, I always am going to err on the side of caution, and partnership with the police department and the administrative team did a great job. It has been a very tough start to the school year in the state of Ohio. Ross had a threat again today, and it's been nonstop school districts dealing with stuff. Most of them are fake, but we're in a time where you can't take anything lightly, so. Okay, that's all I have.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Buskirk. Section 4, Treasurer's Consent Agenda. Mrs. Moore.
I recommend that the board approve the treasurer's consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
Second?
Thank you.
I don't have much to report other than the approval of the minutes of the last meeting, the fiscal report for August. The only thing to point out, the numbers are a little wonky month to month because we received our Butler County real estate settlement in August, whereas last year we received it in September. So timing-wise, there were some differences. We do receive our Warren County money in September, so at the next meeting, I'll have all of the taxes in and I can give a better update then. I will let you know that Rockies, we did see them pay their full current bill through Butler County in August. However, I do not feel that we received any of their back payment. I have some questions in with the county. I hope to get some answers soon on the details and to see when we might receive the rest of it. I will say, since it's already September now, it's just not in our report, I have received the Warren County settlement, and it looks like we did get full back payment from Rockies through Warren County.
Just not Butler County yet.
Yeah, so I'm checking into that, but next month I will have more information.
If you don't hear anything, let's get Mr. Leeds to call him. He's very passionate about
Let
Rocky
me ask you a
Express.
question on Butler County, seriously. If Reynolds takes over, are we going to see a smooth transition, or are we going to have a,
I don't think there is any way to know that. It'll all be very interesting.
We actually met with potential bond counsel, and we had that very discussion because I'll be honest, I don't know Roger Reynolds. It was right when I got here is when all that happened.
Mm-hmm.
So Nancy, during this bond issue, has been very cooperative. She sat down with us. She's talked to us. When they listed the bond issues recently, she shared with, you know, that it is replacing. She doesn't have to do that, but she was, you know, she was helping us to get that message out to our community that it's not an increase. And then today you found something, was it on their website with the auditor, that it shows every bond issue in the county, and it shows increase to local residents. There's, you know, and it has $0 for us. And again, technically, because that second one is passing, she didn't have to do that, but because we've met with her and talked about it, she understands that it is not going to be an increase. So yes, if that happens, Tom, that makes me nervous, but we have a plan that, after November 5th, we will sit down with whoever's sitting in that and go through everything again. We'll have Andy Broussard there to get all the message across. So I'm confident that we can do that. It is a little wrench that I don't think anybody's ever dealt with before, and I don't know what's going to happen with that.
Well, I think all the treasurers in Butler County be the same way. I mean, they're all districts
Yes.
in Butler County, because,
Yep. I don't know what's going to happen, to be honest.
well, the only problem I have is if he takes over, some of these things that Nancy has put in, he can tear down
Yep,
or change, just put it that way.
yeah.
Well, am I wrong? I believe it's because he kept suppressing the appraisals of the home. There's a situation we're in currently.
There was a big increase everywhere, but yes, I believe that was what made Butler County
He kept
worse.
suppressing
Yes.
it for the last few years, which now it's time to pay the piper. So,
Okay.
Yep.
You'll also see the permanent appropriations in here. What we passed in June were our temporary appropriations, and when you do that, you have to have permanent appropriations by October 1st. There's a few updates in there. All of the updates to general fund will flow through our November forecast when I give you that as well. The bond fund report is in there. We had several donations. Not sure if there were any that we needed to highlight. And then and now. Are there any questions, comments?
is all the money where it's supposed to be?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. First off, thanks for all the donations.
Yes.
What is Clever Touches?
So those are the screens, Robert can probably add.
It's like a huge monitor in the classroom that's interactive, so teachers can present on it, but they can all use a touch screen for kids, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been very lucky. The primary school PTO, they donated money for the same thing last year as well in a similar amount. It was quite a big deal.
It's a lot of cookie dough.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a lot of cookie dough.
Yeah, thank you. Those are some great donations.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's much appreciated.
Must have been,
Any other questions?
that must have been a heck of a meal.
All right, Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye, motion carried. Section 5, Superintendent Personnel Consent Agenda. Mr. Buskirk.
It is recommended to approve the superintendent personnel consent agenda.
May I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Grant.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. And Mr. Buskirk.
All right. Self-explanatory for most sections. We have some resignations. Obviously, congratulations to Karen Cook, who will be retiring at the end of the school year. That's a big loss for our athletic department and the district in general. So then we have the winter supplementals for the next section. And then we have some extra supervision for some staff members that do before school activities, supervision, some substitutes, and some salary adjustments.
Any questions? All right. Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Grant?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye, motion carried. Section 6, Superintendent Other Business Consent Agenda.
It is recommended to approve the superintendent other business consent agenda as presented.
May I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Grant.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. And Mr. Buskirk.
The first section is the approval for our 2 SRO officers, and as you can see, it's the 50-50 share with the city of Monroe. I appreciate the city manager sitting down with us and working through that with us. Then the Ford Edge is just the cybersecurity program. It's for something that we must have for our cyber insurance. Declaration of impractical transportation, that is for some students going to a private school, but it's within the, correct me if I'm wrong here, it's within the 30-minute window. So it's impractical because there's just not enough students to do an entire bus route, which would be very expensive. So these families receive a check, and that rate is set by the state of Ohio. Then we have some contracts with the Warren County ESC, and there's 2 of those. And
All right. Any questions? All right. Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mr. Grant?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Carried. Section 7, Superintendent Other Business, item 7.1.
it's recommended the approval of the updated bus amendment agreement.
May I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Any questions?
It's a good idea to pin that down. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Good catch by Debbie. That was actually on the original, that section. They had lease E and leaser mixed up, and that was on the original agreement done way long time ago. So they fixed that. But
No, I didn't.
this part was just for the addition of the pastor.
Yeah.
Excellent. Any other questions? All right. Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye, motion carried. Item 7.
It is recommended the board approve the by RFQ for the contract with Fanning Howie for the design to convert the junior high auxiliary gym into classrooms.
May I get a motion?
So moved. Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Thank you, Mr. Grant. Any questions?
Go through that again when that's to be done.
It will be the design and bid process will go on. Hopefully, they will start around March to start working on that. So I know Tom and Logan have already worked on a couple classes that are in there to the day to work on a plan for the remainder of the year. And obviously, baseball, softball uses that as a rain spot. So Eric's working on a spot for that for the spring. So what they'll do is it's planned for 8 classrooms tentatively, and then we've got some of the storage closets and locker rooms and some of those areas in there that, those will be we'll look at those as alternates. That our main focus is get those 8 classrooms, but what happens, if it's economic to add, I don't know. Because there'll be locker rooms that'll be sitting there that'll be useless. So if we can use that space somehow and it's economical, that'll be something to look at as well.
Good.
That's a good idea. Any other questions?
Nope.
All right. Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye, motion carried. Item 7.3.
It's recommended to approve the hiring of the following extracurricular volunteer for the 24-25 school year.
May I get a motion? Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Any questions? All right. Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Abstain.
Mr. Grant?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye, motion carried. Item 7.4.
It is an approval for an MOU with MEA to fill one of the morning monitoring positions.
May I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Any questions?
I just want to share that is because usually that's a classified position, but nobody wanted to do it. But we did have somebody that did want to do it that was, he's one of our building subs, and so that's what the MOU is, to allow him to do that and get paid for it.
Okay. Any other questions?
Nope.
All right. Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mr. Grant?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye, motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Buskirk. Thank you, Mrs. Moore. All right, moving along to Section 8, comments from the board. Mr. Leeds.
Well, first of all, I got some good feedback on the parade. They said that you had on the truck for the levee. And people said, well, that's the first that they publicly knew about it and were, said there'll be no problem passing that levee. So I'm going to hold them to it. But, I'd like to, again, thank all the people participating in the fall sports, the kids and the coaches and everything. What a great time. And then, as you brought up Madison Smallwood, both of you, that was fantastic to see the shirts on. Other than that, that's all I got.
All right, thank you, Mr. Leeds. Mr. Fulham.
Got some high fives from around the hive.
I didn't hear any drumming.
Nothing really all that new this month. But so high fives to our 7th and 8th grade National Junior Honor Society inductees. NJHS serves to honor students who have demonstrated excellence in the areas of scholarship, leadership, service, character, and citizenship. Congratulations on earning this distinction and representing yourself and our district so well. I continue to witness students, so I want to give high fives to those students who are keeping their space clean after a sporting event by ensuring that trash that is in the stands ends up in a garbage receptacle. It's a selfless act that shows pride in their schools and facilities. Keep up the great work. High fives to Drew, Christian, Caden, Aubrey, and Olivia, 5 seniors who spearheaded and saw through the fantastic idea to celebrate Madison Smallwood this week during homecoming. It was a celebration of Madison that was felt throughout the entire community and showed just how important of a person she was to her friends and classmates who continue to keep her memory and spirit alive. In a world where you can be anything, be kind. Words that Madison lived by that echo so relevant today and something that I think we can all take from. That's it.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Mr. Grant?
I have nothing.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
So I have a few things. I'm going to say ditto to everything that Mr. Leeds and Mr. Fullman has just said. So I'm not going to repeat those. One thing I would like to add is something that I've observed over the past couple of months is I would like to give some kudos out to Coach Mueller and the football staff. One of the things that I saw was during band camp, the football players actually came to the cafeteria and gave drinks and said a few words of encouragement to the band. I had never seen that before. It was I was like, wow, all of us were like, wow, there's football players here at band camp. So just for the football players to acknowledge that the first time. The second time that I personally saw something else was at the Hughes High, the football game at, I forget what school it was at. Withrow. After the game, the football players come over and the cheerleaders and the band, they all do the fight song, the alma mater. But after that, I saw the football players high five and giving fist bumps to the band. And that was just that was really inspiring to see that happen. And that wasn't a coach telling the kids to do that. They just did that. And it was just, it's kind of encouraging, and it's one of those feel-good things to see the football players interacting with the band like that. So kudos to the program and just changing the mentality. Culture. Yes, and having the kids do that. So congratulations to them. So just wanted to mention that. Also wanted to thank Mrs. Long and the ELA committee for all the hard work that you've put into, it sounded like all those meetings and studies and going through all the different programs that are out there and choosing. That's a lot of work. So kudos for actually taking the time and picking and choosing what was best for the students and for the teachers as well. So thank you for taking all the time for that. And that's all I have for today.
All right. Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. I don't know what else there is to say. I know my girls, they were in the parade, except for Greta. She had soccer practice. She was very upset about it. But Missy and the girls, they said it was one of the best parades they've had in a long time. Like there was a lot of participation. Everybody had a banner. Like they said, it was really, really great. So upset I did not get to see that, but next year hopefully we'll be there. But there was something else. I don't remember what it was, so it's fine.
Ditto.
Yeah, ditto. I copy everybody else. But yeah, with that, I will take a motion for adjournment at 7:01.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye. Motion adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
There you go.
You're waiting on it. You were.
I was watching.
You're like, come on, man.
I don't
You're live.
didn't get through the second half of the ballgame.
Didn't make it through?
I just about didn't.
Why?
My favorite color up there.
Oh, who day? Yes.
Get that on record.
Who's your favorite?
We're gonna be home in time to watch the game.
Yeah, you'll be able to kick off the first game.
Yeah.
I was there for about a half hour right before kickoff.
We have this discussion. I just wanted to make sure.
Oh, no, no,